Good evening from New York. A Homeland Security Department assessment of yesterday's murder at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial and Museum, obtained by the Associated Press, has confirmed the obvious, that the alleged killer, James von Brunn, has been associated with right-wing extremism. So naturally, in our fifth story tonight, right-wing Republicans are blaming the bloodshed on liberals. The Holocaust Museum was closed today, its flags at half-staff, in tribute to the security guard who opened the door there yesterday in an act of kindness for an elderly gunman who had a concealed rifle, who took a deadly shot at close range in the chest before the suspect, 88-year-old Holocaust denier and white supremacist James von Brunn, was shot in the face. Tonight he is in critical condition at a hospital in Washington. Today, we learned, von Brunn was carrying a notebook listing other D.C. locations: the White House, the National Cathedral, a still unknown member of Congress's office. The criminal complaint against von Brunn, quoting the note he left in his car: "You want my weapons, this is how you'll get them. The Holocaust is a lie. Obama was created by Jews. Obama does what his Jew owners tell him to do," and so on. The shooting is being investigated as a hate crime, labeled today by the FBI as domestic terrorism, appearing for now to have been carried out alone. Von Brunn's website chronicling a lifetime of wrongs supposedly done to him by Jews, beginning apparently in college when a Jewish man demanded compensation for his son's car, which von Brunn had totaled, complaining that afterward Jews on campus gave him the cold shoulder. Von Brunn even speculating that a phony caption slandering him in the college yearbook might have been the work of Jews, but he wrote, "I will never know for certain." Let's turn now to Mark Potok, the director of the Intelligence Project at the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups and hate speech throughout the country. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Is this not precisely, now that we have these investigations by Homeland Security, is this not exactly what Homeland Security foreshadowed in its report on right-wing extremism?
Yes, the answer is yes. It is precisely what they talked about. They talked about a resurgence of the radical right. They had a great deal of evidence to support that conclusion. It very much mirrored the conclusions of the Southern Poverty Law Center earlier. And, you know, as you well know, DHS was pilloried by political opportunists on the right who were supposedly attacking all conservatives and all war veterans. I mean, it really was the most remarkable tempest in a teacup.
In less than 2 weeks, we've had two fatal incidents, an assassination and an attempt to, obviously, to shoot up a museum and just kill as many people as possible, stopped by quick work of true heroes. Are these two cases anomalies, certainly in terms of the mortality they are, but are you seeing evidence of broader patterns of chatter, to use that term, or mobilization or recruiting or whatever, domestically?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that the groups are definitely growing. They have been trying very hard to recruit around the idea of a black man being in the White House, sort of horror of horrors. And there has been quite a lot of criminal violence as well. In addition to the cases you've mentioned, in just the last couple of months, 5 law enforcement officers have been murdered by right-wing extremists in 2 different incidents. You know, we've had one guy who was so infuriated with Obama's election as president that he was allegedly building a dirty bomb, a bomb with radioactive parts. You know, and it goes on from there. The day after Obama was inaugurated, a man in Brockton, Massachusetts, stormed out of his house and started murdering black people. When he was finally apprehended after murdering 2 and nearly killing a third, you know, he told the police that he was going on that evening to murder as many Jews as possible in an Orthodox synagogue. You know, his complaint was that the white race was suffering a genocide at the hands of others.
Do we now start to take this idea of domestic right-wing extremism and even terrorism seriously? And if so, what does taking it seriously look like?
Well, I would argue that really in most law enforcement quarters, certainly since the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, domestic terrorism has been taken seriously. Certainly the authorities have done, I think, a very good job of protecting Obama up to now. You know, the idea, though, that somehow, you know, this shooting at the Holocaust Museum was in any remote way an artifact of the left or Obama's fault somehow, you know, I mean, it's vile beyond words and just has no basis at all, in fact, of any kind.
Does it, however, is it a self-protective measure by the right, or is it's just something that feeds further into this paranoia that has developed on the right since the election?
You know, I guess it looks to me a lot like paranoia in the sense that it seems to me that a person with a functioning brain would have a very difficult time thinking of the Holocaust Museum shooter as somebody who was somehow sparked by, you know, the vile leftist policies of President Obama. I mean, I just, you know, I mean, it seems to me a comment made for ridicule. So it's hard to understand, you know, precisely why one would make that kind of comment unless, you know, one's real interest was in drawing ridicule on the right in this country.
Well, we will explore that in a moment. For now, Mark Potok, from the Southern Poverty Law Center, thank you for your time and for your work on this issue, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Better than anyone on the right, Rush Limbaugh knows not to bother denying that von Brunn's rhetoric sounds a lot like Rush Limbaugh's. President Obama is a puppet of others, the government is enemy, somebody coming to take your guns. Instead, today, Limbaugh and other right-wing radio hosts chose an entirely different tack: offense, in both senses, blaming liberals for von Brunn until slipping 15 minutes later and contradicting his own claim about the left's influence.
He hated both Bushes. He hated neocons. He hated John McCain. He hated Republicans. He hated Jews as well. He believed in an inside job conspiracy of 9/11. This guy is a leftist, if anything. This guy's beliefs, this guy's hate stems from influence that you find on the left, not on the right. They want turmoil, and if it doesn't exist, they create it. Now, this Jew hater who killed yesterday was a nut. I doubt that he was influenced by anything other than his own mental illness.
Except we know von Brunn's influences. He even lists his character shapers on his website. Quote, in 1964, General Pedro del Valle gave me John Obiete's The Iron Curtain Over America. For the first time, I learned how Jews had destroyed Europe and were now destroying America. General del Valle was a Republican. Quote, General del Valle recommended that I be given a position with Noontide Press. Noontide publishes right-wing books. Willis Carto was its founder, he wrote. Willis Carto, a right-wing Holocaust denier, whose Liberty lobby hosted speakers such as Phyllis Schlafly, Republican. Talking Points memo reports that von Brunn switched his website domain on June 1st to a man who shares a phone number with a woman who is listed as a Michigan coordinator for former presidential candidate Ron Paul, who is at least nominally a Republican. Von Brunn himself posted on the Republican website Free Republic, spouting the right-wing claim that Obama's birth certificate was forged, defending President Bush against Dan Rather, and claiming the media had tried to destroy Sarah Palin. From his own website, right-wing websites illuminate the problems that Aryans face. Each day, new alarms are sounded, adding more fuel to the raging fire. The right wing does nothing but talk, no plan of action against the well-known enemy. Exactly the advice Marxists, liberals, Jews want to hear. Even a kid in grade school knows when it's time to get his knuckles bloody. Time now to bring in MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson, associate editor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist of The Washington Post. Gene, good evening.
Evening to you, Keith.
First, let me just acknowledge the obvious. You're a black man, you work in the media, you work specifically at the Washington Post, and the Post reportedly was mentioned in these documents connected with this man, von Brunn. What is your response as somebody who is apparently 3 times an enemy of this man?